Hi everyone, my name is Elsa de Marsanda Tarigan with ID number 21120-21059. I'm from Ganesha University of Education. So last week we listened to our friends explain about English for presentation, from how to make a good presentation to presentation at a glance. So on this occasion, I will continue the English for presentation material, which is about cross-cultural tips. That you can remember about cross-cultural, that is, audience have very different expectation in different culture. Knowing what your audience expect from presenter is critical to successful presenting. There are several guidelines for using language effectively and sensitively to facilitate communication. Namely, being alert, choosing words carefully, avoiding idioms, slang, jargon, acronyms, respecting the basic rules of grammar, and correct standard syntax, being polite and formal, avoiding informality, avoid jokes and humor, listen and respect silence. As for the factor that we must know in cross-cultural are, the first of this involvement factor is number one of this involvement factor is interaction. Some audience simply want to listen and not contribute. Yeah, as we know, many participants during your presentation only listen without wanting to interact or get involved with question, or maybe answer the question or ask the question, or maybe the activities carried out during your presentation, such as singing or reading, for example. He just choosing to be quiet and listen. Okay, number two is rule of silence. So some audience use silence to communicate agreement, not hostility. As we know, when someone makes a presentation and want to get approval from his audience, example, any question, or maybe is it correct, or maybe anyone else, and participants are just silent, it is an agreement in the form of silence, not hostility. But this is for some people, not everyone is like this. The next is interruption. Some audience expect to be able to interrupt. Yeah, it is true. Not infrequently, this happen at the time of presentation. Maybe the participant feels your voice is not clear enough, so they interrupt to ask you to speak more clearly. Or maybe the participant feel confused by your explanation, so they interrupt, and many other things that the effect. The next is human touch. Some audience like to see the personality of the presenter. Some people definitely want to know our personality through human touch, like maybe shaking hands or patting the shoulder and many other things. The next is punctuality. Most of the audience respect punctuality. As we know, punctuality is very important and needs to be applied, but is often considered trivial to some people. The next is formality. Some audience see informality as lack of professionalism. Yes, if we use formal language in a fairly formal presentation, then we are considered less professional in making presentation. The next is animation. Some audience prefer a reserved style to over an enthusiastic presenter, because sometimes the presenter is too enthusiastic and ends up being informal, making the participant less comfortable to attend the presentation. The next is level of analysis. Many audiences have in-depth specialist knowledge. So we need to analyze the material so that we are not overwhelmed when responding to question or maybe a statement from participants who have deep knowledge. Yes, that's the involvement factor. So now we move to the second factor, namely organization factor. The first one, that is systematic. Some audience prefer an organic style to rigid structure. Because if it's too stiff, then the atmosphere when we present will be very boring. So participants get bored quickly and don't pay attention to your explanation about your material. The next is support. Some audience don't want a lot of visual and handouts. Yes, yeah. As we know, when we do a presentation, we will use some visual and handout like a whiteboard or maybe in focus, but it is not recommended to use too many visual because it will confuse the participant. The next is digression. Some viewers see digression as irrelevant. Yeah, many people think that digression is irrelevant during presentation because it is considered to have carefully and prepared for the presentation. Okay, now we move to the third factor, that is body language factor. Number one is hand. Some audience view hand in pockets as sloppiness. This is so true. When someone does a presentation and makes it the pocket, it is very ugly thing to look at. So that participant consider that is one of impoliteness. If we play a hand when explaining the material, it will be seen that we really explore the material that we bring. The next is eye contact. Some audience feel uncomfortable without eye contact. When we do not use eye contact during a presentation, it is a sign that we are not confident, and this greatly affect that comfort of the participant. Using eye contact is one of the things that is very necessary when making a presentation. Eye contact is also meant to influence the participant to pay attention to our material. The next is dress. Some audience work in companies and cultures with strict dress codes. Yes, many jobs have a strict dress code, but when we doing a presentation, where we also have to adjust the clothes we will use. The next one is body. Some audience expect presenter to be dynamic. Dynamic can also be interpreted with the word excited. When presenting enthusiastically, of course, the participant will also be enthusiastic in participating in the presentation so that the presentation can run smoothly. The next is face. Some audience look for animated facial. The next factor is delivery factor. Delivery is important, of course, because it is what is most immediate to the audience. And here are some of the factors. Number one is language. Some audiences have limited English vocabulary. When we do a presentation at a school, there are definitely some students who don't understand English. So we can choose a language that is known to all participants. The next is read text. Some audience prefer spontaneity of precision. There are some participants who prefer it when we explain the material spontaneously rather than reading a whole text or maybe memorizing the text. because if we speak spontaneously, it will be easier to understand. The next is voice. All audiences need sufficient volume and suitable speed. This greatly affect the understanding of the participant when we speak. We should use a clear voice and normal speaking speed so that the participant can enjoy our explanation and also can easily understand what we say or what we explain about. The next is social factors. Are those causes where the individual is affected by social support, social networking, etc. There are several social factors, namely the following. Number one is name. Some audience prefer family names to first name. Some participants prefer the family names to the presenter's first name because it may be easier for participants to recognize. The next is business card. Some audience will request for business card, of course. For example, when you meet a Japanese person for the first time, this time it is for business purpose maybe. So at the end of the meeting, usually you will give them a business card so they can easily contact you. The next is host thanking. All audience expect basic courtesies to be polite. Yes, politeness is needed by a presenter, as we know. Correct, smile, thank you is a form of politeness. The last one is hierarchy. All audience respect social and corporate hierarchies. So, if there are deficiencies or mistakes in a company during a presentation, we don't need to convey into others as a sign of respect. Okay, from the material I explained, we get some survival strategies. That is, in a situation when the audience doesn't understand, you can use language like, let me go over that again. Or in a situation you forget, you can use language like, perhaps I should mention blah blah blah. Or in a situation when you know vocabulary, you can use language, I'm sorry, what's the word again? And when you are loose, you can say, now where was I? And when you drop your slide, you can say, please just bear with me a second. Okay, that's enough my material. Hopefully useful for you. And if any of you want to ask question related to my material, I accommodate 3 questions and also 1 feedback for me in this video. So thank you for your attention and your time. Bye bye.